Lemminkainen Suite, Opus 22, Four Legends from the Kalevala of Jean Sibelius. We heard the Lahti Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Osmovenske. And you heard it on today's On Rush Hour, presented by Specs, voted Best Eyewear Store in Time Out Chicago. Discover your Specs appeal today online at specschicago.com. Pennis Leif Ove Ansnes, and music of Grieg, the humoresque Opus 6, number 3. Today's On Rush Hour was presented by the eye care professionals at Specs, where you'll find the newest styles from your favorite designers. Discover your Specs appeal today. For locations, visit specschicago.com. This is WFMT Chicago, 98.7 FM. When big games fill big screens and holidays celebrating love are on everybody's minds, Trader Joe's thinks of one special thing: olive oil. John Basilone says one Trader Joe's favorite is California State Extra Virgin Olive Oil. It starts with Arbequina olives grown on estate olive ranches in Northern California in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. These olive trees are grown on trellises like wine grapes and are 100% drip irrigated. This not only reduces water usage, it also intensifies olive flavor. Arbequina olives are known for their fruity, mild, buttery flavor, and California State Extra Virgin Olive Oil is bursting with those flavors. It really shines in dressings, drizzled over pasta, or combined with Trader Joe's Duca Spice Blend as a dip for warm, crusty bread. Trader Joe's sells California State Extra Virgin Olive Oil in 16.9-ounce bottles for $5.99. Same price it's had for more than 6 years. To find your neighborhood Trader Joe's, visit TraderJoe's.com. Tune in WFMT Thursdays at 8 to hear the New York Philharmonic This Week with host Alec Baldwin. It's presented by Haenig's Footwear, offering unique collections for men and women at 5 Chicago area locations and online at Hainigs.com. Hainigs Footwear for shoes that fit your life.
Seek ye first the kingdom of his love. Make him first in everything you do. If you just trust and never done what he said, all good things will be added unto you. Seek ye first the kingdom of his love. Make him first in everything you do. If you just trust and never done what he said, all good things will be added unto you. Twice he fed a multitude with the smallest bit of food, and they all gave thanks to God that day. Still today we won't believe that to give is to receive, that the words he said will never fade. Seek ye first the kingdom of his love. Make him first in everything you do. If you just trust and never done what he said, all good things will be added unto you. He's got everything you need. All he asks is that you heed and be faithful to the very end. When that judgment day has come, don't you want to be the one just to see his face and call him friend? Seek ye first the kingdom of his love. Make him first in everything you do. If you just trust and never doubt what he said, all good things will be added unto you. All good things will be added unto you.
Not today. Normally she closes the store right at 6. So she's not going to be able to be here. Normally the school times are closed. Have like iPhone. Well, I'm sorry. It works again.
Good, how are you? Okay, well, we can share it.
If you've just arrived and you'd like to sign up to speak, the sign-in sheet is right here, so please feel free to step up and sign in.
In the pencil drawer?
I think it just turned on.
Yes, sir.
Would you like, do you need a few minutes to get yourself sorted out?
No, I'm sorted. This comes from work. I read it though. I read it.
No question. Never.
I didn't know there was going to be a test.
On page 35.
They didn't know why it didn't say human services.
Oh, they didn't know I did some services, okay.
They didn't know what it was automatic, whatsoever. So they decided to get it. And that's what we saw the rules. I saw it someplace maybe on that.
So should we be setting someone separately?
Nicole sends me the agenda.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you get it from her then, just for your services. So whoever was assigned to the rules should have got a note that there's anything in here right now. Okay. Good, just want to make sure the system's right.
Welcome to the Monday, February 4th, 2013 Human Services Committee. I'd like to call this meeting to order and also declare that we have a quorum. Second item is approval of minutes from the January 7th meeting.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Citizens' comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to Section 3, items for discussion. Review the police complaints. Are there any questions? I had a quick question for the chief. The first question, Chief, I just noticed that the dates of many of the complaints are old. They date back to 2011. I was wondering if you can just share with the committee the reason why.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. There's several reasons for the lengthy timelines in the complaints. First of all, there's a comprehensive internal review process. Also, there's the issue of getting witnesses in to chat with us. I think one particular case that we're recently familiar with, a young man filed a complaint about a police interaction, returned to college. The names of the young ladies who witnessed the interaction so far have been disinclined to come in and chat with us. That adds to the timeline, and frankly, I am uncomfortable with just giving those witnesses one opportunity. I'm insistent upon multiple calls and contacts. That drags out the timeline. And so that's part of the exterior issues we deal with. Internally, I've recently discussed this at a staff meeting, and one option is under consideration to adjust the hours of the supervisor cadre that needs to review these complaints, have them all in at the same time to expedite this process, because I know there is a frustration when these reviews take this long.
Okay. Alderman Holmes.
I just start on the OPS annual report, and in looking at the numbers, I think because we sometimes only concentrate on those that are the complaints that come before us. But it was interesting to me that of 36,048 calls for service that was received by the department in 2012, OPS investigated 30 complaints, registering involving 30 allegations against 47 police officers. I mean, that's a drop in the budget. Huh? It's a whole different perspective. It gives you a different. So it was very helpful to read through the report and look at the picture.
Thanks. I want to thank Commander Diane Davis, who's with me here this evening, who compiled this report. And in addition to those 34,000 calls for service, the number of traffic stops we conduct is also a generator of complaints against officers. So most of the time we handle our interactions with the public in an appropriate manner, and there's no complaints generated.
Right. And then even looking at the total in terms of, I think sometimes people think, well, doesn't do any good to complain because nothing's going to happen anyway. But looking at the, the number that are unsolved, unresolved, not sustained, unfounded, exonerated, and sustained, look across the bottom, and it's impressive. Yeah, it really does. So I really want to comment on talking on this. It was very helpful for me.
Thank you. I also wanted to point out one other category in there that I think is significant is when we list something as a policy failure. Sometimes things go wrong because administratively we haven't given the correct directions, instructions, and that's part of the review of, does the chief of police need to issue different orders, adjust the current orders, and so those policy failures are significant in adjusting future conduct of officers.
I just have one more follow-up question. Just in reading through the packet, I noticed that there are some occasions that video is available, some occasions when the officers turn on the video, and other occasions when video's unavailable. What's your policy in terms of using video to record police stops and other places around the police department?
Inside the building, the video is relatively comprehensive. And essentially in a public facility like that, especially a booking facility, there's no right or expectation of privacy, so those events are recorded. Even the events at the front desk are recorded. So that's pretty squared away. What has changed over time is when the recording of traffic stops became authorized in the state of Illinois, it was a very narrow description of when you could record audio and visually those events. They were confined to Illinois Vehicle Code violations. That law has subsequently been broadened. We're in the process of adjusting our general orders so that most events can be recorded. When a uniformed officer is making contact with a citizen, we're just about up to being able to record every event. We're finalizing the adjustments to the general order. We're also in conversation with the FOP unit that represents the officers and the FOP unit that represents the sergeants to finalize those changes, because it will be a significant change in the volume of events that we can record.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Chief, remind me, we recently purchased some software that enables our police department to store more data, and would that include some of the video recordings?
Yes.
So that they're more easily accessible, they're more...
Yes, and once again, there are certain parameters in the state of Illinois that we need to hang on to the recordings for a minimum of 90 days. And usually that gives us an opportunity to field any complaints or concerns in that 90-day window and then retain those specific snippets of digital recordings longer if necessary.
And is 90 days the state standard? Is our standard around 90 days? Or
The directions we receive from the state are that's the expectation.
The minimum is 90 days. And is that a long enough time period given the duration of some of these complaints?
Well, no. Once the complaint is lodged, we go out and make a separate recording that pulls it out of that server system. So we'll have that on recording devices, usually a CD-ROM or disc that goes with the OPS file that we have for as long as we have the OPS file.
And do we get many complaints that come in after 90 days after the incident?
Usually not. I won't say it never happens, but usually not.
And you would, even if there were something that would rise to the level of complaint, we would probably know about it and be able to identify any relevant videotapes to preserve it in the eventuality of a complaint? Does that happen?
Generally speaking, the only issue we would run into is if we had exceeded the storage capacity and we begin to dump those events that are outside the 90 days, that would be an issue. And so once again, should there be a concern about police conduct, sooner is better.
Right. You would act affirmatively then and
Yes.
and find that video. Great. Thank you.
I just have one last question. It's item CR 1108.
Mr. Chair, which page is that?
That is on page 25. Would you like to take a moment to review it?
I remember this one.
Okay. So in this complaint, the accuser states that the officer removed $120 from his wallet and paid his cash bond without permission. And then as you read down, it states that the officer then threw his property down on the ground in front of the station. And when you go and read through the summary, whomever records mentioned that the property was placed on the ground, which just seems a bit odd. And I was hoping that you can share some details to explain to us exactly what went on in that situation.
This was a long and complex situation, Mr. Chairman. Let me address the bond issue first. Frankly, the sergeant who took the money and posted it as bond made a mistake. He received a letter of reprimand for that mistake. And once again, to put this in context, the sergeant is attempting to protect his resources over the rest of the shift he's running. If the gentleman's bonded out, we don't have to do cell checks, we don't have to provide food, we don't have to provide hospital runs, and so I want to put it in that context so it's not like we're just doing something off the top of our head. That was his motivation. A misguided solution, but I think his motivation was reasonable. So that kind of set the scene for some difficult interactions throughout the course of the evening. The service desk officer who was then releasing him because his bond had been posted by the sergeant went back to the booking area and called him by the wrong name. And it wasn't inappropriate language. It was like, "Are you Mr. Hill?" He took great offense at that. So as the complainant is basically running out of the station, the booking officer's following him with his plastic bag of stuff. If you're familiar with the front of the station, as you're walking out of the station, if you turn right, you go down a handicap ramp. Well, as the complainant's going down the handicap ramp, the service desk officer goes on the porch, if you will, where the handicap ramp comes back towards the porch and drops the bag over the edge saying, "Hey, here, don't forget this, take it with you," and drops it. The gentleman is so incensed that he keeps going. The officer walks down the ramp, picks up the stuff, takes it back inside, and calls the complainant's spouse and says, "Hey, your husband didn't take his stuff. Can you come down and pick it up?" Which she eventually did. So as the words were kind of disconcerting on paper, but when you put it with the images on the videotape, it's less problematic.
Next item, H2, Office of Professional Standards Annual Report.
The report's available, will be placed online with this package, and I think that it shows the disposition of issues over time and the thoroughness at which the OPS conducts its business.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. Next item, H3.
As committed to in this forum and at the City Council forum earlier, Dr. Thompson was brought in to provide training to 182 members of the Evanston Police Department. We've received positive comments from the majority of officers that were there, also some suggestions for what should occur in the future. It's my hope that based on those comments that we can bring Dr. Thompson back in the next 6 to 18 months, depending on his schedule, and see what we can do to enhance this format. Also, Dr. Thompson attended the mayor's conversation on race that occurred after his first day of training. And I think he had long discussions with one of the chairmen of the Human Relations Commission, Stephanie Murray, who was impressed by his input and grasp of other issues, non-police, that impacted the community. He had an interesting and long discussion with Dorothy Head about the Viola transfer station and his perception of the impact of similar facilities situated in minority or low-income neighborhoods. And I think everybody at the table was impressed with what he brought to the discussion in matters that weren't directly police related. So I think that he did an impressive job in both forums, and I'm looking forward to bringing him back in the relatively near future.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Well, I had the pleasure, actually, of which gave me the opportunity to really observe two different groups of officers and, staff in the police department, because it was more than officers. In both of the sessions, I did from 10 o'clock, and then I did from 1 to 3. So it was really, really very, very interesting. He is very, very engaging and super knowledgeable. So it was very interesting to see how he engaged the participants in the training session. I said, Mr. Chief, I hope it will be more like 6 months rather than 18 months before we have him back, because I'd not like to lose the momentum of that I think was created. He's an excellent trainer, and I think that it would be really good if we can have other people involved in, if not participating, but certainly observing the training for the next time when he's here.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was lucky enough to catch up with Dr. Thompson the evening at Robert Crown, and I think it was a happy coincidence that we had that event during his stay here in Evanston, just to give him a really much broader perspective on our community, not just here in the Civic Center, the Parasol Room. Really impressive man, and we had a great conversation. Really great conversation. And so I guess my question is, do we have specific plans to bring him back to continue that?
Specific, no. Dr. Thompson is engaged.
Hard to book.
Well, hard to book, and he also is considering a job change, and depending on if he accepts that or not, it may further restrict his ability to come and go. My understanding from the age of his kids and his spouse's perception, I think they're kind of on our side of the argument, so we'll see what happens. So as soon as he comes to a decision on that, we'll be able to finalize follow-on dates, or if follow-on dates are available.
Right. My impression it was valuable to him as well as valuable to us.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Chief. I'd be the first to say that, I had a lot of questions about the doctor going into the training, and I think we all understand that, it isn't a one-shot deal, that after this the series of sessions that we're going to see all of our problems disappear. But based on the comments that I've heard just from our council as well as a few officers, I've heard that it was a wonderful session. And so I'd be very curious if that information is available, to be able to read any of the comments or feedback from the officers, just to see what they received out of the sessions.
Have the Office of Administration work on a summary. Some of it
great.
is numeric ratings, and we'll certainly provide you the overall numeric ratings. I think oftentimes in those type of evaluation, the comments are much more significant, so we'll work on a summary of those comments.
And even though we won't have the good doctor come back, is there anything that you do on an ongoing basis with your officers, Chief Eddington?
There are other types of training that we use that I think are significant to preventing interactions from going further astray. One of my personal favorites is something called verbal judo, and I think it is significant in imparting to our employees, both sworn and civilian, tactics and techniques not to take the comments personally, deflect them with appropriate language, and then get back to what the issue is to attempt to address the customer's problem. And I think that is an ongoing course through the NEMART training consortium we belong to, that we use quite frequently and have conducted that training in-house in the time that I've been here.
Alderman Tandem?
I'm sorry.
I was at the last public forum at the Crown Center as well, and lucky to be seated with Dr. Thompson at his table along with the chief, and I agree that he's a valuable resource for this community on many different levels. There's also those small groups, the tabled conversations, were put on boards. They were never discussed at that meeting, and I think the Human Relations Committee is getting back or assembling those in a statement. Hopefully it's something that could be read to this committee or presented to this committee, because I think, I would like to know, having been there and part of that discussion, what other tables we're talking about and all that. So
They're planning a follow-up too, hopefully.
Okay.
Another session.
Oh, terrific. So, yeah, I just think it'd be very valuable for us to hear those comments.
Yes, Chair and Alderman Tindem. Yes, those commentaries, those results, that feedback is being aggregated and put together in a report, and we will bring it back. The Human Relations Commission meets this month to go over it and to talk about what the next steps are in that whole process, but we will provide that feedback from that session.
Alderman Holmes.
In answer to your question about the summary of the officers, or I should say the police staff comment, I just unsolicited 2 or 3 different officers and people that I know within the police department said to me it was some of the best training that they've ever had. So I was really impressed with that. And I mean, just people, you could tell because people were smiling and talking and sharing, and it was really good. I think did a good job.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Dr. Thompson has helped me survive again, so I do appreciate his efforts.
Are there any other questions before we move on to the next item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chief. Item H4, update on Piven Theater lease.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good evening. It's been a while since we were here to talk about the Noyes Cultural Arts Center and our discussions with Piven Theater Workshop, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to come and give you an update. We have been working with the Piven Theater on an agreement for the use of the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. As I think many of you are aware, this would entail a fairly substantial amount of capital improvement on behalf of the Piven Theater for the center. That agreement is ongoing in its negotiations. My concern is that the agreement come to you when it's ready, when we have a firm a sense of how this is all going to go forward. My hope was that we would be here sooner than tonight, and unfortunately those discussions continue. We will bring it, however, when it's appropriate and it's ready for consideration by this committee and the full City Council. In the meantime, it's important to keep folks abreast, and you have representatives here tonight from the Noyes Tenant Committee, and have been meeting with them most recently on January 7th to give them an update of our discussions, and spoke with their chair via email last week, letting her know I was coming here this evening with these updates. So that's continuing. But really, I think the important point here is that the commitment that this council has made to the current tenants is to try to have any improvement done with the least amount of impact to the current tenants. So that is ongoing, but also to have an agreement that makes sense for Piven, but also makes sense for the taxpayers of Evanston. So that continues. Mr. Smith on Evanston Now today wrote some comments about all this. One issue that I guess has been raised in the community has been the location of the arts camps that we currently run at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. There is no change in those arts camps for this summer in 2013. I think when we were here 6 or 7 months ago, I think we did talk about the possibility of there being adjustments to the locations of those camps as we move forward, and that could still certainly take place. But there is no change for 13, and as we see the agreement with Pivens come to a fruition and get a better sense of what the time frame would be with the council's approval, we'll have a better sense of where we're going with the arts camps. But at this point, no location change, and even if at some point in a future year we would need to look at location changes, those camps are some of our most successful and highly attended that we offer citywide, and they certainly wouldn't go away. I think we would just look at other locations throughout the community to offer them. So I wanted, since that point was raised in the press today, I wanted to make sure that clarification was given. That's all I have. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you very much for the update. First, we have a question from Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. That's helpful. I wanted to make sure, because I get emails all the time and it's in my ward, that the tenants still are part of the ongoing discussion and that they're not given a back seat to the discussions that are going on with Piven. I mean, they obviously have very strong concerns. Want to make sure that they're still at the table. There's some here tonight. I don't know whether anyone wanted to speak or not, but this is an opportunity for you to do that if you have anything to say at all, and you don't have to. You don't have to say anything.
Again, Alderman Fisk, members of the committee, I went to the group on January 7th. I think that, and please Maggie, correct me if I'm not characterizing this correctly, certainly concern and anxiousness among some of the tenants for not knowing. And
Right.
I think one of the things that we still don't have a final in final format is the final footprint. And I think that seems to be the point of most concern. I think there has been dialogue. I think we know that we don't want to displace anyone. There's been at least one large departure in Ken Arlen's orchestra, which quite honestly makes this process a little bit easier because Mr. Arlen and his organization had a fair chunk of the new space that the Piven Theater Workshop was looking to have as part of their improvements. So with his departure, that has made this a little easier, but at this point, as I stand here this evening, we still don't have a final footprint that makes sense. And so I think that's been the biggest point of anxiousness. What I have committed to the tenants group is that once we have what we think are a final deal in place, that it will come to them before it comes to you.
Okay.
And so that they will have...
Okay with you? Okay.
That they will have some time to digest it, because I think the footprint has been a concern. I think the responsibilities of Piven moving forward for their portions of other parts of the facility, access issues regarding what happens during construction, those have all been the issues that have been raised. There really is no multi-party bargaining table. It really has been myself representing the city and Leslie Brown, the executive director of Piven, and some of her board members representing Piven. So I don't want to give the impression that there have been larger numbers of people at the table, because there have not. But what I have committed to the Tenants Association is to keep them informed, and then once there is a final agreement, that they would have time to digest it and comment to me, as well as comment to you here at the committee, as well as comment to the full city council. And I think at this point that's acceptable. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where we stand.
Okay. Just as long as they know when you're going to have a meeting, you discuss what was discussed at the meeting with them, and they are fully up to speed with what's going on. I just don't want anyone to feel that they're not getting all the information when they need it.
And I think Alderman Fisk, I agree with you 100%, but I've come to learn that's just a very tall order, because I think that there's always a feeling that something's happening somewhere that people are unaware of, and I've tried very hard with the Tenants Association and with the members of the council. We've been a little stalled in trying to get the final footprint and to get a business deal that, again, makes sense for the Piven Theater Workshop and makes sense for the city of Evanston. So that's why we're not here with a final agreement, because those issues have not yet been resolved. Doesn't mean there's problems. Doesn't mean there's. It's just these are hard questions. The Piven organization is looking at having to raise over time a fair amount of money, and they want to make sure that if they're going to do this, that they have their donors and benefactors lined up in a way that makes sense for them. From the city's perspective, we also need to make sure that it's all lined up, because I understand from the council very clearly that there has to be a balance to this, and until there is a balance, I'm not going to waste the Piven organization time, the tenants at Noise's time, or your time to look at something that's not fully baked. So,
well, just as long as everyone feels they're being dealt with as fairly as possible, that's what we ask.
And I'm doing the best I can.
I know you are.
Thank you. We have a question from Alderman Grover.
I think Alderman Fisk may have already asked mine. I just want to thank you for continuing the discussion with everyone at Noise Cultural Arts Center, and looking forward to a proposed agreement.
And it's hard,
Soon,
and I think that
we'll work through it. We'll work through it. I have no doubt.
And I think that the best thing I can do is sometimes come and say I have nothing to say.
Right.
Because,
so your report tonight is
because then at least it dispels any other rumor of things that might be hidden. And so I'm happy to come here. I wish I had more to say, but I also think it serves a role to get up in front of you and the press and the television to say we don't, because hopefully then people will feel there's less things made up in their head and more that's just, sometimes these are complicated matters and take more time than you would want, and I think that's just the instance here with our discussions with Piven.
I agree. I think there's real good value to a report that has no news.
Only in Evanston,
All right.
but absolutely.
Be careful, you might be quoted.
Thank you very much.
There's Bill's over there snickering. Thank you very much for the update, City Manager. Seeing no more questions, next is items for consideration. HH1 Township of Evanston, January 2013 monthly bills. Assessor Bonnie Wilson. Oh, pardon me, bills, sorry.
Move approval.
Yeah.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Do we have any questions?
It just still astonishes me every month how much we're spending on prescription medications, and I'm hoping that a lot of our township clients are finding their way to our Erie Family Health Center, where the costs won't fall so dramatically to the township's bills. Rather, I'm thinking. Yes, Ms. Jean-Paul. Good evening.
Good evening.
You were hidden behind the. I didn't see you there.
Yes. We're still in the process of negotiating it with Erie Healthcare Center. I had emailed Amy. We've been going back and forth, and she has to get approval from up higher up on the contract language on the purchase agreement. So we are working on that. However, it does not cover the prescription. So we still paying at Medicaid rates for prescription at Walgreens.
All right, but there are ways that we can reduce some of our township medical bills costs with a. You're working. What are you working out with Erie Family Health?
Actually, right now our Medicaid rates can range for a doctor visit less than what Erie's offering.
Mm-hmm.
However, because they're FQAC, we have to go with that rate. So for daily visits, it can be routine doctor visits. Preventive care, it can be $128 per visit. Whereas for Medicaid, why it's still in existence, it's lesser. But Medicaid might be a service of the past if we
All
don't,
right.
if the state doesn't get there.
All right, but you do see Erie Family Health as a good resource for the township clients,
It would provide another resource for our clients because Evanston Hospital Outpatient Clinic and St. Francis Outpatient Clinic is overcrowded, and some of our clients, it take months to get services rendered to them.
and that's exactly why we
Exactly.
needed and want the FQHC.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Jean-Paul.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passes. Assessor Bonnie Wilson, did you want to make a report? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the trustees. I can call you trustees. I'm Bonnie Wilson, Evanston Township Assessor. I just want to give you an update on the Assessor's Office and what's going on at this time. The Senior Citizen Assessment Freeze Exemption and Senior Exemption applications must be submitted to the County Assessor by this Wednesday, February the 6th. You don't need anything notarized, so you can mail them in or come to my office and we'll mail them for you. It's actually better to bring them to the office than we have a copy of the exemption, and we can follow up to make sure it gets done. If you're born in 1947 or before and owned and lived in the property as of January 1st, 2012, you qualify for the senior exemption. The household income for a senior freeze is $55,000 or below. I want to remind everybody that this is the year that Evanston taxpayers are being reassessed on their property. It's 3 years, 2013. The 2013 reassessment notice is scheduled to be mailed on February 22nd, which is only in a few weeks. And any assessment change for 2013 will not be effective until the second installment payable in 2014. So when people see this reassessment, they realize that it's not going to take effect until next year. And we encourage everyone to file an assessment appeal to assure the lowest possible property tax bill next year. And my office will be taking appointments after the notices are received by Evanston taxpayers. And I will be sending out more information as soon as these assessments get in the mail to the media of the City of Evanston and also to the trustees when the assessments are mailed. I also want to mention that 9 Evanston taxpayers have received corrections for missed exemptions in January 2013, totaling over $23,000. This brings the fiscal year total for the first 10 months to $376,000. Please contact my office to make an appointment for help with your senior or senior citizen assessment freeze. And The number, I'm going to repeat it, is 847-332-2465. Once you get to your reassessment, again, I want to emphasize to call for an appointment. Don't walk in, because we're going to be taking people on, taxpayers just on appointments, because it's going to be too crowded just to walk in and wait. We don't want people waiting in our office for longer than 10 minutes. We're hoping to get them through the appeal and take care of them right away, and not a long wait. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a motion.
Your,
Oh.
your motion?
It can wait.
Yes?
My name is Madeline Ducree. I live in the 5th Ward. I just wanted to touch base. Your meeting changed, and usually 7 or 7:30, and I think a lot of people didn't notice it or forgot it, just like I did.
Okay.
I won't take up any more of your time, but I have some information about the complaint, Dr. Thompson, etc., but I will acknowledge this at the city meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please come back. We apologize. Did you have a motion, Alderman Grover?
I do. Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, I move that the Human Services Committee convene into executive session to discuss the agenda item regarding real estate, which is a permitted subject to be considered in executive session and is an enumerated exception under the Open Meetings Act. This exception is 5 ILCS 120, 2A, C5, and C6. Second.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Before we adjourn, I just had one other quick announcement that this Friday, February 8th, at 8 o'clock in the morning here at the City of Evanston in the Parasol Room, we will have a wonderful event. It's Procurement 101, How to Do Business with Large Local Entities. So thanks to Mr. McCrae, the staff person for the MWEB committee, and I believe Godwin Chen. I just want to give credit, and anyone else, as well as our committee. We will host 6 of the largest entities. They've been invited to participate. So I'm inviting any local business, whether it's a contractor, printer, or just looking to get more information about the procurement process for any of those entities. You're invited to attend. To receive more information, you can go directly to our City of Evanston website or call 311. Thank you. Motion to adjourn? Oh, we are? Oh, thank you.
What?
Did you get your questions answered?
Yeah.
Causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble.